Hi, folks. Welcome to a short edition of the Omnist Hour. If you watch many of my things, you'll notice that I'm a little bit peaked since the last one went up. I guess I programmed it to go up at midnight uh, of today because I realized after I recorded it that I was recording it actually uh, not the day before Ramadan, but 2 days before. And I didn't want to come off as being an idiot, so I delayed the premiere till midnight last night. Um, it's been an interesting time since then. Uh, just to give you a heads up, if you haven't watched the other episode, Ayya was suffering from what I was afraid might be new COVID variant, kind of a flu. She was feeling very, very, very sick, and uh, oddly, because she's had several versions of COVID, and I didn't think she'd be catching another so quickly because, uh, anyway, I was worried about her, and that's what stimulated yesterday's discussion about Ramadan coming and what causes ascension sickness and what is ascension sickness, which is a lot more than what most people think, and is captured in one way or shape or form in all religions. It's not some new age thing that's been invented by the star seeds or something like that. At any rate, I set it to go off at midnight, and we went to bed. Uh, Io woke me up in the middle of the night, right about midnight, right as the uh, thing was going live, and she was in terrible pain. She wanted me to rub her, wanted me to do anything. She even took uh, ibuprofen, which is hard to get down her gullet. She's not much of a medicine taker, um, and was still having these horrible pains. Uh, eventually she said, I can't take it anymore. Take me to the hospital." So we got a grab and went to the hospital and got to checking her in and had the doctor check her out and this and that. And if you know anything about how hospitals work, and well, I don't know, maybe they're everywhere these days, but in Indonesia they're very slow. Even in the emergency room, there's a lot of waiting for paperwork and PCR tests and blah 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 blah. So she was sitting on a gurney in the ER for quite a while. So they gave her a blood test, an X-ray based on the symptoms she was describing to them, and then had her waiting, and I was working on the process. What I was told initially after they did the evaluation is that it might be a good idea for her to stay in the hospital for a week. And so I thought, okay, I got the paperwork all done, made the deposit, got all the medicines. Which interesting thing here, the doctors can't just get the medicines or the nurses out of the medicine cabinet. You got to go to the medicine window, and which is interestingly enough manned by two people, a policeman and another person, plain clothes, which I thought was an interesting way to set up access to medicines, especially given what we know about uh, how much trafficking there is in illegal medicines, and how much addiction a lot of the new drugs coming out are proving to cause, especially anything that's mind altering. Anyway, that's just an aside. I got that all taken care of, went back down, and my wife told me, you know what, I want to go home now. I thought, whoa, weird. Are you feeling better? And she still had a fever, and uh, was a little bit upset, but she said she wanted to go home. She didn't want to stay in the hospital, and I said, "Okay, fine. I'll go talk to the staff and get that arranged." So I started doing that, and uh, we ended up coming home instead of staying for the recommended 7 days. Um, Now, little did I know that she says she tried to tell me, but I don't always understand everything Ayya says because her English is kind of like the patois that they speak in Southeast Asia, which is like what you would expect English to be like if it was taught to you so you could communicate with Chinese. If you can wrap your head around that. Uh, that's the kind of English that gets taught everywhere but the Philippines out here uh, in the modern world. You know, Indonesia used to be a Dutch colony, so there's a few people that still speak Dutch, but that language never really caught on very much, even in the colonial era. Anyway, we got back and we were let's see, I had some more revelations as I do when I have a lot of time to think because I didn't have any internet at the hospital and I got tired of playing the game that I've been playing, which is an interesting game. I kind of like it. It's one of these match three games where you're saving people from drowning. And the only thing I was kind of not plussed about it is that it made a big deal of saving VIP people, which I guess, you got to save the doctors and stuff like that. I understand that, specialists. And they had a special building for the VIPs. And I didn't like their choice of some of the buildings. There was a dojo for a VIP, which, well, this kind of rings true. You've got these new age gurus who think they're as good as a doctor, right? And they understand as much about the spirit as a believer in God, probably more. And a lot of these folks have joined this woke cult that says, well, there really is no God. God is everything. Pantheism, which we'll be talking a lot about soon. Anyway, long and the short of it, I asked that she wanted to go home, and then she mentioned after we got home, she was still running a pretty high fever. I said, honey, are you sure about this? And she said, yep, I'm absolutely sure. And then she told me later on when we got back that what was really going on is she was being attacked spiritually by the ghosts that have been troubling her. And I've known that since. I mean, that's something that we had a bond with when we first met. That um, when we were sharing our stories as couples do when they first meet, um, and because she was in a very dark place, having just recently tried to take her own life, part of the story she shared was that she's had these ghosts, she called them, that haunt her and make her depressed and make her want her life once in a while under stress. Uh, anyway, she told me when we got back that what was really happening was these ghosts were physically attacking her while I was sitting with her trying to comfort her, and she was complaining of these pains. They were actually climbing on her back and I don't know, punching her, hitting her, whatever ghosts do. And that's why she so quickly said, I got to go to the hospital because she thought she was having another mental breakdown, which I can certainly relate to because I've been in a similar case when uh, my personal demon has come to play trick on me. Dark nights of the soul. I can only imagine what it's like to have a bunch of them working on you at the same time. I have a hard time with the one, even though I've grown to kind of love his trickster way of punching me when I get to moving too fast. Anyway, long and the short of it is she's doing much better now, and like I said, I was inspired to a couple of other things. I was originally going to do one of them as this podcast, but I want to keep it short because Ayya wants to get back to my company pretty soon. So I'm just going to tell you the names of two of the coming Ramadan episodes you can look forward to. Oh, I also wanted to tell you something really odd that I forgot to mention yesterday. Do you know that the month of Ramadan shifts every year? I didn't know that. And that makes a lot of sense to me now that I've thought about it for a while. We'll talk more about that in some of the coming episodes. Um, the next two, I'm going to write them as first, I think, as Kindle Vella essays. So you'll see them in written form on Amazon first, and then maybe I'll read them as a first reading, like I've done with some of the other Kindle Vella stuff. The first one's going to be called The Cads of Code. Tolkien Unmasked Through Shalob's Fat Ass. I thought that was a catchy title. And you can imagine or look forward to what that is, or if you have an idea that rings a bell for you, you might just come up with the same answer I did, or even other interesting pieces that I haven't pieced together yet. The other one, I might change the title, but here's what it is so far: A Tribe for All Seasons. The real 12 tribes of the Gaia experiment, and why you should question all biblical scholarship. So let's see, was there anything else I wanted to mention, had to mention today? Well, I think I will give you another little communion here, this time my more favored way with wine. Any of you who know me very well know that my favorite communion set is wine and maybe a little bread. I'm kind of a traditionalist in that way. Uh, the Muslims are actually quite a bit more broad-minded. Their communion set, I mentioned a little bit of, is water, which maybe isn't as much fun as wine, but they can have for their other God substance pretty much any kind of a cake or a sweet or whatever would be a decent accompaniment to late night snack during the fasting of Ramadan. Um, so, and whatever your communion set is, and I'm sure they've all been the favored one of the current religion, whether it's ayahuasca, whether it's magic mushrooms, whether it's marijuana, uh, all of these sacred stuff. Oh, mead. Mead, the first beer made with honey, not wheat. Interesting tidbit. Anyway, so I'm going to close with a little swig from my today's communion. And so the punchline of the story about Ayya is that given the circumstances that I discovered them, I think we could say that my prayer rather fell into the nature of at least a fairly promising first exorcism, which, if you're aware of, some of what the Catholic Church does in their ministry, exorcism is a very important piece of it. That's a large subject I'll probably talk a whole episode on sometime. But I just, as part of the synchronicities that led up today, I've been also fed on YouTube some interesting content from some of the chief exorcists of the Catholic faith. I don't know. These bots are getting so clever, they can figure out what we're thinking before we do. Anyway, apparently we have the first proof of concept that my new prayer of purification for Ramadan was successful on at least one Muslim subject who had a very, very troubling illness. And we'll see throughout the next month how many souls within spiritual range of this prayer are affected by it. This is in the nature of an experiment we're going to conduct with Omnist Islam. So my Islamic brothers and sisters, if you have anything interesting in that way that happens during this next month, especially during fasting, which fasting is also a communion of sorts. It's a communion of nothing. And that's essentially the communion of Borg, the hive mind species that has been mucking with the Gaia experiment for quite some time, and which is kind of the centerpiece of why the Gaia experiment got started. It's a reaction to Borg. Borg oneness needs to be countered karmically with polytheistic manyness of gods. And this ties into all of the old religions that Christianity killed of many gods. Gosh, there's so many great things I could cover here, but I'm not going to do any more. My wife's going to be disappointed in me, so I will just give you a little swig of the communion glass and wish you happy Ramadan, blessed Ramadan. I don't know. Should I say the prayer again? I think once was enough, because I've actually gone through it several times in different ways. I sang the song, the new song, actually yesterday morning, early morning, before this interesting day began, before I recorded the episode, in fact. And that's actually about when Ayya started feeling sick, or sicker, if you will. Sick enough to be worried that she was having some bigger problem. Anything else to note? I guess that's about it. Again, I hope I do not offend any Muslims, as I hope I have not offended Christians, who I also number among my brethren, and sistren, and birthing persren. This craziness, this cultural Marxist craziness is just reaching epic proportions, isn't it? I wasn't going to mention the Oscars thing, but that's been what everybody is going on and on and on about. And it's really funny because now you've got two icons of this woke cultural Marxist cult at odds with each other, and different groups of them cheering on one or the other. The Hollywood tribe is completely divided around this new, horrible, horrible incident. Well, we've got wars starting, and we've got a pandemic we still haven't completely figured out, and is still being covered up. How excuse my French, fucked up is that? Anyway, I think I better wrap it up. Welcome. Thanks for listening to the Omnist Hour. Again, I'll try to get one of these other essays done tomorrow and record in the next day or two. So be patient. And until then, I've also gone into the back burner. I've got that new version of the first book I need to get out. So I'm going to be a busy camper during Ramadan, which maybe will help me with the fasting. Won't help me keep my wife very happy with her fasting, but we'll see. I just hope her health is better. Anyway, have a blessed Ramadan month. Have an interesting April Fool's Day. Happy birthday to my oldest brother, Peter, who I've not talked to in quite some time since well, things have been downhill for poor Peter for a long time. He always had kind of this messiah complex that led him to some very dark nights of the soul and very dark relationships with his family. And wherever he is, I hope that he's spent a little time studying Islam in addition to Hinduism and whatever else he's into now. He was actually a so-called right-wing conspiracy theorist before I started getting that label, or I would be getting that label if anybody was paying me much attention instead of just ignoring me, or blocking me, or banning me, or finding objectionable misuses of copyrighted content in my presentation. Anyway, Peter, if there's any way that you can sense it, I'm thinking about you and wishing you a happy birthday. I don't wish it enough to call you anymore because I just can't take any more of your toxic certainty. But wherever you are, I hope you've made a reasonably happy life without your devoted wife and 3 children, who I can tell you are doing quite well on their own and are getting to see quite a bit of my family in Colorado. They got together just recently for Rama's birthday. So anyway, well, Rama, there's another thing to mention about Ramadan. Ramadan. Now this is fun when we start thinking about English, and which obviously was not invented when Ramadan started. And if you know anything about Islam, all the religious stuff is in Arabic, and they're very strict about that. Even here in Indonesia, I was worried yesterday that I might offend somebody for translating one of the Ramadan verses into Sundanese and English as what I claimed, and you can prove for yourself, were the closest thing to humanity's first language and the current version of humanity's final language, the one that we're going to take out into space, Star Trek style, and spread karma, not love, karma. Well, there'll be a lot of love there to spread, but we're going to have to spread some other things too, because like anybody who's looking at what's going on now, this love, light, and peace tribe are basically useful idiots that end up not dealing with negative souls, with problematic souls, with ascension symptoms, souls with ascension symptoms who are ascension symptoms, in a timely manner and letting them go to pot and become a big problem that could have been dealt with spiritually, karmically, with a deeper understanding of God than the exorcists of the Catholic Church had. Well, this is another thing I was going to mention about Islam, how they deal with exorcism. I thought, well, maybe they changed something about how they do exorcism. And maybe they have the women do the exorcism, because I know the rites of women in Islam are very separate from the men. The men are the ones that go off to the mosque and pray, and the women have their own prayers that they do at home. So I thought, well, maybe this is one of the things that they delegated to women, so that men who are obviously more subject to the darker manifestations of power, would, that seemed like likely something that might occur. But no, in fact, the rite of exorcism is still done by men only in Islam. Oh, yeah, you're gonna love when we start talking about the Wizard of Oz, who is the inventor of the real universal mantra, not Om. Oh my God, we fooled them. Ah, is the magic mantra of peace, contentment, harmony. Funny enough, this ties back into another book that I'll mention, a series of books by Robert Lynn Asprin. Interesting name. Middle name starting with the letter L, which we know each letter has a significance. L being, oh my God, one of the names of L is L, E-L. And aspirin being a medicine that was very, very useful, but does have a few side effects. It's still used quite often now that they're aware of what the risk categories are. And so, if you are interested in that sort of thing, might prompt you to look at some of the other medicines, plant, animal, mineral. What's 20 questions? What is there besides animal, mineral, and vegetable? They're all medicines. They're all cures for karmic ill. And well, I'm going to go ahead and talk a little bit more about exorcism. I was explaining, when I asked her about this, she wondered why I was interested. And I told her, well, I've seen The Exorcist actually is quite a good movie. If you haven't watched it, I would do it. The church was not too happy about some facets of it, but it actually does reflect truth, an uncomfortable truth to the Catholic Church about ascension symptoms, about spiritual possession. And that truth is that, as I said, all of these afflictions are essentially mismatches in karma. Karma being the karmic footprint of any soul being a certain set of resonances which may or may not be in phase with other things around them. So, basically every soul has the potential to be the anti-soul to another. And this is actually the truth of particle-antiparticle pairs. That's why they can cancel each other out. At their consciousness level, with the number of decisions they have, a very low consciousness, they have a very simple resonance of This is my ante, I cancel out. Not really cancel out. One of them goes to another universe, the universe that attracts it, which, our universe here attracts what we call positive matter, and the other universes attract, well, the first other universe attracts negative souls. But there are many universes now because there have been many senior creators grown up through this system of karma, which has existed since the beginning of the Big Bang. However, it's only been in test phase, which is why you don't see a real god of music running around, a real muse, a real god of, well, name any abstract concept you can think of. Because that's what basically is going on with this big experiment we're in, is giving a name to the things, the concepts that are created, and an energy to them that draws them to a universe where they're most useful. God's universe is the universe, well, God and karma, because they sort of play hand in hand, keeping the keys to the kingdom, if you will, which is more of a republic, if you will. They make sure that there's always two very close copies of the best that we've done so far, just in case somebody throws a wrench in the system that they didn't think of. It's very well designed. At any rate, God and karma are, karma's focus is creating laws to govern creation for the family. So she's like the bad cop of the family of God. The mother, usually you think of the father as being the bad cop, but in the first family, that was exactly the opposite. Dad was the one that wanted to teach their kids everything before they were ready for it, wanted to give them the keys to the car when they couldn't even reach the pedals. This is the God of creation. The God of creation wants to see new creation, is excited about anything new his children develop. And this you see this in parents of both sexes now. I mean, because we're a mixture of male and female, right? Not just divine male, we're not just divine female. We have a mixture of the good and bad qualities of both. And that's what makes each human and individual, but gives them a preference for one type of behavior, one type of role that goes back to, all the way back to God and karma. And actually, their first test, which was the male and female demiurge, which I will henceforth refer to as Lilith and Lucifer. There are two Satans, two great gods, one male, one female, that have been running the show while God was playing with his own children's toys, as any parent of precocious children might do if they are scientifically or artistically inclined. Anyway, I think I'm going to cut it short there. Hope you like this episode. Like, share, subscribe, comment. Especially if you have Islamic friends, I'd be really, really curious to know what their reaction is, and to find out if this has been a very interesting Ramadan, because the Islamic world has kind of faded into the background with this Ukraine-Russian conflict. Interestingly enough, although there's still fighting going on in Syria, there's still genocide going on in Xinjiang, And Turkey is the the looks like the first European country to just completely collapse. Greece somehow pulled itself out of the Greece, and now it's Turkey up against the ropes. So if you've been following what's going on there, you know what I'm talking about, and I can only imagine what's going on in Yemen and uh, Kazakhstan and the other Muslim or former Muslim majority countries in that region. So to all of you who are still uh, praying to Allah, I wish you happy Ramadan, and I celebrate this with you as the latest of a revised Sufi sect that's gone off the rails uh, since it started. I think Rumi must have been, he's so popular, all these quotes and everything of Rumi, but I'm afraid that Rumi, he forgot about heaven needing to be a roomy place and having room for a lot of different opinions. And oneness just doesn't really cut it for that. Oneness of consciousness, oneness. I mean, it may be stable as hell, but it's friggin' boring. And interestingly enough, after Rumi, the Sufis stopped dancing. I don't think they dance much anymore. And they're all very intellectual now and philosophical. And I don't know, people find that interesting because they talk like this and they do this. Oh, I talk about my guru, my teacher, and blah, blah, blah. And I'm a Sufi, but I sound more like snake oil version Hindu. So I don't know, or Buddhist. I don't know what's going on with the Sufis right now, but if there's any of them in Indonesia that want to chat with an Omnist Sufi, I think we might have some interesting philosophical and religious discussions. All right, so I'm going to say goodbye. Thanks for tuning in to the Omnist Hour. We'll catch you next time.